This is the monthly meeting of the Cable Television Access Corporation Board of Directors. Could we please come to order? And Tammy, could we have roll call, please?
Bogart? Here. Fullerton?
Here.
Lee?
Here.
Smith?
Here.
Theophilus?
Here.
Wireman?
Here.
Williams? Here.
Thank you. We're all here. We have a quorum. I'd like to mention that this is our recording secretary's last meeting. And Tammy, we appreciate everything you've done for us, and we'll miss you.
I make a motion, we don't let her leave.
You get several seconds on that, Steve, but
Thank you.
You're out of order. A reminder that this Cable Television Access Corporation meeting is conducted in public and by law may only address the topics listed on the published agenda. The board will hear testimony but will not engage in debate of issues with the public at this meeting. If you have questions, please submit them in writing with your name and contact information, and we will get answers to you. During testimony, it is not appropriate to applaud or convey disapproval. These actions detract from the formal decorum of the meeting. At this time, please turn off or mute any electronic devices. And with that, agenda item 2 is approval of the agenda. Are there any additions or corrections to the agenda?
Mr. President, I move that we modify the agenda to move item 6E and 6F to the start of section 6. I have a report to make to the committee concerning E and F, and it may be necessary for me to depart early. That would be my motion.
Certainly. We can just do that by acclamation unless someone wants to second it. I think Danny, as most of you know, has to leave early, so we want to make sure we get that in. All right. Agenda item 3 is approval of the minutes of November 18th. Are there any additions or corrections to those minutes?
Move to approve. Second.
Moved by Mr. Lee, seconded by Mr. Theophilus, that the minutes of November 18th be approved as presented, as printed. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Let's go on to agenda item 4, which is reports. Again, there'll be no public comment. These are questions by the board only. And today we'll hear from the Knowledge Network. Jim Adams, if you could come forward, please. And as always, we need your name and address for the record, please.
Hello everybody, my name is Jim Adams. I live at 11629 Ruggles, 68164. You have a Knowledge Network report in front of you. As with most of the institutions, they're hitting the end of their first semester of the calendar year, and their classes are shutting down and doing finals, and then we'll start up early again in January and deal with a whole new set of students and start creating some of the programs we have, and we're always looking to create more. For about a period of a week and a half when the university shuts down, we'll be in almost full time with the Viewer's Choice Network on channel 18 on Cox, and Classic Showcase on 109 on Cox. We try to put a lot of our documentaries and things in longer form programs on the Viewer's Choice at this time. So if you've never done it before, you just tune in during the day and see. Pick whatever program. If you're the first caller in, you pick the program for that time. It's kind of a visual, powerful feeling. Any questions for me?
Jim, I'm just curious, did you ever get any inquiries on the need for a set-top box for 109?
No. No. I've made them phone calls, and I can get anywhere. So it's frustrating now. There's just too much interaction electronically ahead of time, and I barely end up with the wrong human when I do it.
Okay. Thanks.
Thank you. Have good holidays, everyone.
Thanks a lot. As was moved in a previous meeting and noted that we would just hear from Century Lake and Cox on a quarterly basis. Although if anybody from Cox or Century Link is here, we're always glad to hear from you, and that would be good at this time. Seeing no one, let's go on to staff reports. Agenda item 5A is the studio update. Could we hear from Jim or Dean on that, please?
Hello, I'm Jim Nelson, 8202 Camden Avenue. I have in front of you, or getting passed out, the report for December. And I want to start off first by recognizing all the assistance that I've received from Tammy regarding the efforts that we've been through, and I'm going to miss it. Moving on. Been getting a lot of inquiries about volunteers and interns. And as we get closer to opening day, what I've realized is that we have to have a formal process in place. As you can see, I've attached a little flyer and a form that will be required by all those interested in internships and volunteering. The internships are primarily for students, seniors in high school and college. And as far as the volunteers, we're open to all those who are interested. These are, of course, non-paid positions, so that's definitely a plus for us, but willing to provide for the young person or for the individual a handful of hands-on experience. The outreach to producers is growing very rapidly. Just recently, I made contact with the National Association of NAM, National Association of Nonprofit Associations, and there are like 4,000 nonprofits that this organization works with. They heard about the channel, they heard about the opportunity to produce shows, and what's the next move is to sit down with them and to actually discuss, the approach that we would take. What I have been doing is talking to as many individuals as possible regarding just how the process will be. Trying to make it very simple, where those who have ideas, we sit down and discuss what the idea is, what we are capable of providing, and what we would expect from them regarding the policies and procedures that will be in place. The Safety Council, I had an opportunity to talk to the CEO there, and they are excited. In fact, everyone, I'm not hearing no from anyone. It's just a matter of when and how much and what do we need to do to start. And like I said, that keeps growing. And by all means, if you have an opportunity to talk to anyone who might not be aware of what's going on regarding the channel, my door is open. The channel is close to being open to the public, and the opportunity for individuals, organizations, to be not just show providers but sponsors is something that we are looking for. Regarding some of the internal things, I'm getting bids on cleaning services of lines. If you've been by the channel, we've got big windows that will need to be covered. No problem yet, but when I'm there late at night, I'm on target. Not that that's a problem, but we will stand out. The signs will be up shortly. Well, I don't say shortly, but the request for the signs for outside have been presented, and we're expecting them ASAP. Now, I have to tell you, when signs go up, people come in. So I want to make sure that we're prepared in regards to, you might see the sign that says KPAO, but at the same time, our operation hours, as well as when the doors will be open to start accepting individuals and working with them, is yet to be determined after all equipment has been installed. A studio ladder, Charlie and I talked a little bit about that, but that's necessary because the lights are up. in the studio. And in order to adjust the lights, I need a ladder. Not just any ladder, but a ladder that can hold a certain amount of weight and be very easily moved in the studio. Because when you start talking about programs, you want to be able to adjust lights in particular, as well as move at a very rapid pace. Been holding workshops, very small workshops with individuals who can't wait. And those workshops involve them telling me what their program they would like to see created. I then in turn direct them as to what we need regarding their efforts. We do not do the programs. We assist in the program development. So by all means, again, if you know individuals, let them know that we have professionals on site who are willing and ready to assist them. And again, that's where the interns and volunteers come into place as well, for the training that they will have to go through. And one last thing, the DA equipment that connects us to both CenturyLink and Cox, we are working with a new provider and being able to get that put in at the same time soon, as soon as we get the equipment, which the new provider is going to work with as well. So everything is going very quickly, in my opinion, as well as smooth. I'm not one for trying to backtrack. I want to try to make sure that we move forward, and when we do move forward, we're moving forward without looking back. So I'm pleased with the progress that we're currently at. Are there any questions?
I have one. How many people were involved in the workshops, and who was assisting? Were you or Mr. Craddock assisting both of you?
Most of the people are coming in the evening, and those are the times that the actual shop will be open. So we're getting familiar with people coming in at those times. And as far as how many, I have one scheduled every evening this week, except Friday. And what happens is that we go over what they're thinking about doing. I let them know what is required, which is primarily something in writing that says there's a commitment on their part. Everybody's got ideas, but the minute effort to start making them come to life, they sort of dwindle away. So it's important that when I talk to them, they understand that the process is commitment on your part 100%, which involves them talking, writing, and then executing what they can do. And then I, in turn, assist them in, you can do this better, or what you're doing is correct. As far as how many, for the last couple of weeks, I've had individuals come in. In fact, some individuals have come in and actually start shooting. People are anxious to get going. And I let them know that the studio is only one part of the service we provide. Being able to help them with the editing is just as important as having the studio. And everything doesn't need to be done in the studio. So they're becoming aware of what it takes to actually do a program. Because they can watch it on TV and think it just happens. But there's a lot of stuff behind the scenes that they're starting to become aware of, as well as the time it takes.
Jim, did you say you're changing suppliers for the distribution amp?
Yes, actually, Dean can address that better, because we're sort of, I don't say killing two birds with one stone, but working with a supplier that the city's familiar with.
And then that'll get the Prism.
Yes.
CenturyLink.
Yes.
Is that the same thing for you, Jim, TKN 1 and 2, to get on to CenturyLink's Prism? Are you doing that now?
Yeah.
Because I can't find TKN 1 or 2 on Prism.
Yeah, it's not on Prism. It's on
Telechoice Online.
Yes.
Which is going away real fast. It went away at my house.
Oh, really?
And your house, too. Okay.
The last time I talked to CenturyLink, they said that the public access channel and the Knowledge Network would be on in December. You know, that's kind of old news. The weather's been bad. I don't know. but I sort of wish CenturyLink was here to talk to him about that.
Yeah. Give a call.
Yeah.
Call later.
Sure.
Okay, thanks. Oh, Jim, when you met with the safety council representatives, did you meet with a producer type or?
I met with the CEO.
Okay.
And then there's other meetings that we're going to have, so we can be more specific. They have quite a lot of information. So it's just a matter of finding out what's going to be the best way to start.
So Jim, when you, on your volunteers and interns program, when you get this core or group together of your volunteers and they're trained, their services will be available to anybody that wants to produce a show? Am I understanding that correctly?
That is the gist, because the volunteers and the interns, they have a plethora of things that they would like to see done as well. And so rather than saying, okay, I want to do camera and that's all, well, I would like for them to be able to do a little bit of everything. Because there's going to be times when someone who is scheduled to be on, who has said they want to be on, can't be on. And if they're only ones that know how to do a certain function, it sort of defeats the purpose of having volunteers. So the idea is for all volunteers and interns to be able to do any function within the operation, but primarily the first function is going to be involved with working with producers in producing shows in studio first.
Right. No, I understand.
Jim, do you have I'm sorry.
Just a quick question. On the interns, high school and college level, do you have something set up with some of the schools so that they can actually get credit for it, so we can continue to have a steady pool per semester or per year?
Regarding the high schools, what I found out that they're actually obligated to do a certain amount of community work. And so when you talk about credit, I think what they get is something that assists them in their graduating, because they have to have so many hours of that. And it was told to me that this would be an ideal situation for high school students. For college students, that is up to the actual university or that class. So being able to give them credit is something we can't do. What we have to do is negotiate or work with that department, and most of the departments are pretty open to it. And I found out recently, it's not just the media department that is open, all of them.
My question was similar to that, to ensure we get this activated with the right contacts with the winter semesters and winter quarters and spring.
I want you to see what I have put together that will be going out, so that we're all on the same page regarding what we are looking for, what we have to offer, and what is expected.
Thank you, Jim.
Any other questions of Jim? Thank you, Mr. Nelson. Appreciate it. Just wanted the staff update, discuss process to review Nelson Craddock contracts. I guess I can say that the executive committee met Thursday, December 5th. 2/3 of us. I met Dennis Lee. Charlie had a death in the family. Again, our condolences, Charlie. And rather than duplicate what I believe we'll have in the motion from Mr. Lee, I'll just say that we met with staff and had a thorough discussion about Jim Nelson and Chris Craddock. And Mr. Lee is prepared to introduce a motion that will extend for a period of time their contracts. And there was also, I was glad Rudy Smith was there in Charlie's place, because he had indicated a desire to work with personnel issues, and he had a lot of good comments about a better job description, which we'll be working on. But again, rather than duplicate what Dennis is going to say, let me just say we met and we feel good about going forward. Let's go on now to a policy and procedure overview. And Dean, do you want to take us through this?
Dean Miller, City Council Staff Office. I want to thank the board again for going through the policy and procedures based on our meeting last month. You all received a lot of input from citizens, and you all went through policy and procedures in the end and gave me all their ideas. I made those ideas, I gave you a red line copy, and so that's what's on the agenda today. Just to recap, the major changes is changed most of the references of producer back to user. So it's pretty consistent throughout the document. It says user. Based on the testimony last month, deleted the 90-day embargo with the added reference. The 90-day embargo was that if you use the taxpayer studio and equipment, you would have to wait 90 days to get your material after receiving the input and from you guys. Once it is shown on the CTAC channel, we've really honored our part with that producer. It's been shown on the channel, so really there's no reason to embargo it after that time. Really, as long as they don't sell their content or go on the internet. So that's been deleted. Deleted also, I think there was the barriers spoken about last meeting regarding the studio training of $100 per person, and of course everyone knows we need a 3-person crew, so you need a $300 to really get started. And after listening to you guys, we've removed that $100 training. So from here on out, the training sessions and your crew, it will not cost you anything. So that's a couple major barriers spoken about last month. Another one, we eliminated 2 crew positions in the live programming. Rather than the 6, it's down to 4. And really just a couple other minor cleanup changes based on that. So that's on your agenda today, those changes, and that policy and procedures that was held over from last month. If you have any questions, I can answer.
Are there any questions of Dean at this time? As you can see, it's also on the agenda under new business, and we'll again have a chance to talk about it. We actually had the public hearing last month, so that probably should have been under a different category, but we'll deal with that when we get to it. Can we have a finance update, Dean, please?
Dean Miller, City Council Staff Office. This is the cash flow for the month of December. And if you see, we operating expenses of $11,777, capital expenses, you're going to see $80,617. We're going to talk about this in the payment of the bills. This expenditure, you will note that in November for capital, we used to have $53,000 for the equipment. That's been removed. And then we still are holding the 5% retainer on the construction of $15,000 for a total of $107,000, which will give us a balance of $254,104 after this month. If you run it out, I've highlighted all the way to May, which is when we will receive our next Cox payment, and so we'll still have a positive. If you have any questions, please let me know.
Okay, thank you, Dean. Any questions about the finance report? Thanks a lot, Dean. Let's go on now to do business, and we wanted to move, per Denny Lee's motion earlier, we want to move items 6E and F up, since Denny was involved with the executive committee's meeting relating to the contracts with Jim Nelson and Chris Craddock. And Denny, if I could, I'll just turn it over to you.
Thank you, Mr. President. As John indicated last week, the executive committee met and discussed the current contractual arrangements with Jim Nelson and Chris Craddock. Those contracts are set to expire during this month, at the end of this month. And as you've heard from the continuing reports at these meetings this month and in the past, we continue to edge closer to the opening of the studio. So following our discussion at the executive committee and knowing that both Chris and Jim's contract are coming up for renewal, it would be my motion that both of those contracts be extended under their current terms and conditions and monthly pay rate for a period of 90 days, commencing on the date that each of those contracts expire. Those contracts expire on different days during the month, of December. And that way it gives us an opportunity to get the studio operational, hopefully within that 90-day period, at which point I imagine we'll be coming back to revisit this again in February as we come close to the end of that 90-day period. So my motion for today's meeting for the board's consideration is to continue the contracts of, extend rather, Jim and Chris's contract for a period of 90 days under the current terms and conditions of their duties and responsibilities with the, on the monthly base rate of what they're getting at this point for their monthly pay.
Thank you, Danny. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved by Mr. Lee then and seconded that the contracts of both Chris Craddock and Jim Nelson be extended through March 2014 at the current terms and monthly compensation rate and the current duties. Is there any discussion before we vote on this? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, that carries. Thank you very much.
Excuse me, is there
Thanks,
supposed to be
Danny.
a public hearing on that?
I beg your pardon, Mark. Certainly, yes. Yes.
I was
Now
just
that we
curious.
voted, you're entitled to a public. I'm just kidding. If you'd like to have if you'd like to make any comments, Mark, that's my error.
I don't. I was just wondering if someone else here might want to.
Mr. President, I'd recommend that we withdraw the vote on that motion, and if anyone wants to make a public comment.
Thank you,
we
Danny.
can
That's
consider
my
that.
error. All right, anyone who would like to talk specifically about this item on the contractual continuation of our two employees? We need your name and address, and any connection with cable TV is always good to know.
I have no connection with cable TV or any group. My name is Bonnie Cosentino. I'm at 1010 South 67th Street here in Omaha. I'm here today because I heard about this meeting taking place today. I would implore you to give all the help that you can to Mr. Nelson. The reason that I'm asking for this help is because last night I viewed things that were just frankly unbelievable to me as a viewer, as a resident of Omaha, and most of all as a taxpayer. Excuse me. I tuned in about midnight, and there were things that I spoke about the last time that I saw on the screen. Most noticeably, I had talked about advertising being shown, and this time it happened to be Mr. Nelson's own sign of advertising that was a full screen that said Jim Nelson Media Services. And that's all you see for the time of it was approximately 10 seconds. That is his private business. That is not to do with cable, with the public access channel. I don't know. But it looked like a commercial to me. Right after that, there was a show on that was not current. The date of it was 2004. It said right on the screen, it was 2004, and there was somewhat of what should have been a comedy show. It was very sophomoric in its presentation. There was a man there who was discussing his visit to the venereal disease clinic, and he spoke about how he had a Q-tip inserted into his COCK. He asked the doctor to play with his peenie to comfort him, to make him more comfortable. I regret standing here talking about these things. I regret that as a resident of Omaha, Nebraska, who's proud of everything here, that I've told people to watch KPAO, and that this is what they get when they tune in. I would go on, but there were references to Cox Cable, that it was not spelled that way. It was spelled just the way I spelled it. There was a man giving a weather report. He was talking about snow in the beginning, but it wound up that the 6 inches were in reference to another COCK, and there was commentary about the satisfaction level. What's going on? May I ask, why are my tax dollars going for this? I subscribe to Cox Cable. They have a level of decency that they provide for family viewing. Why aren't any standards coming across from this city? When I see this work product, I want to beg you, please help Jim Nelson understand that there are people watching him. I'm insulted. I want my tax dollars back today after what I see going on. So if you're going to employ him, please take responsibility with him. Please take him by the hand and help him see it. Also, at the conclusion of this program that I just described, and I did suffer through it, mercifully it was over in an hour. Why cut off programming that's of value in a half hour and leave this on for an hour, only to be punctuated by another Jim Nelson Media Services board?
I didn't give her time.
Thank you.
Thank you,
I
Ms.
thought we covered my
Constantino.
time.
Yeah, thank you. Anyone else like to make a comment? Again, this is specifically on the contractual continuation. Hearing none, we'll call the question again. Danny, do you have anything to say before we vote again?
No.
Again, the same question. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, it passes. And thank you, Ms. Constantino. We appreciate your comments, and we'll certainly look into that. Thank you. Agenda item 6A is board action on items from reports. Do we have any? Later on here we have approved of payments of bills, approved purchase of equipment. Do we have any board action that we need from items on reports? I don't think so. Dean, do we? Beg your pardon? That's listed separately, so I think we're going to have to wait on policies and procedures. That's 6D. Okay. Agenda item 6B is approved payment of bills.
Dean Miller, City Council Staff Office. You'll see the payment of the bills, the invoices that were paid this month based on prior board approval. Of course, the monthly employee contracts, the lease, the .com, Metro E-Connect, and then the Signworks rent payment. The only proposal we have before you, and I pass that out, is from ABI. As you know, we did the engineer's estimate. That was around $53,000. We sent it out to bid. The bids were due on 11/20, and we received no bids from any vendor. I checked with the Douglas County Purchasing and John Lemming. Once the item has been bid out and we receive no bids, you can go out and get a quote. Based on that, Mr. Kogar had me contact ABI and get them involved. They looked over the schematics, they looked over all the equipment. The bid you have from ABI in front of you is based on the engineer's equipment that was previously listed, except there's a couple different variables. There were a couple discontinued items on the previous one, so they have substituted out some better equipment. Also, they have presented the board with an option, rather than buy 3 computers and a switcher, we can actually get a switcher and get rid of 2 computers. We don't save a whole lot of money, but we do get rid of some of the equipment and the ongoing maintenance, and actually the functionality is a lot better. And I know Jim has met with AVI recently to go over it. I know he feels comfortable. This is the equipment that the studio needs, and in hindsight, we probably, AVI wanted to probably bid this. Unfortunately, they thought we were putting our electronics machine in the back here to do public access programming. I think we originally were going to start that way, until we realized it wasn't going to channel 22. And then that's when we secured a location to start sending the signal and laying the fiber to that facility and start broadcasting from there. And they were a little unaware of that, but once they realized this is the same company we bought the electronics machine from, so you feel, I guess, some measure of that this equipment is going to talk to the electronics machine, and some level of comfort that this is a good bid. So anyway, this bid came out to $80,617. One item I thought it didn't contain, and that was in the engineer's estimate, is the installation, or the integration, I should call it. It's more, not installation, it's more the integration of all of the different cables and all of the components, make sure they're all talking to each other. So anyway, before you today is a quote to get this equipment from ABI, and if you have any questions, let me know.
And I have a question. API was the only bidder?
We received no bids when we put it out to bid through the Douglas County Purchasing.
You put it out for bids. Was it only in this area? Or limiting from bid on it just from?
Yeah, how I understand how it works is, I mean, you do have to sign up with Douglas County Purchasing, so I mean, they're going to notify all bidders who were in the Douglas County Purchasing system. I did get contacted from a few companies, but AVI, again, I think once they felt we were going in the back room, we weren't building the studio, I think they thought we weren't going to be involved, they weren't looking for this, and so, you know, that was their comment. They wished they had known that this was out there, because they could have bid on it, just like they're giving me a quote today.
Did ABI give you an indication about timeline? Are they ready to proceed if we go with this, or how long it would take to get this done?
I know Jim has met just recently out there.
Jim Nelson, Coach Kevin Hammond. I spoke with him this morning, and my concern was the time frame, and they say maximum 90 days. They also indicated that the switcher itself could be brought in earlier by the manufacturer, so that the training could go on, or the learning for training would go on while the installation was happening. So when it actually was up and running, we would know exactly how to work it, so that when we train people, it wouldn't be we had to wait till it was in there and then learn and then train. So it gives us an opportunity to actually work with it before you put it in.
So 90 days you think goes an outside number, no more than 90 days?
I'm saying, I told them, we have to have this ASAP.
Yeah, we need to get it.
Yes.
Can they piecemeal any of this for us? You've mentioned the one, but can they piecemeal it so that we've got a little of this, a little of that, and then?
Right, it would happen in stages. First thing is for them to actually look at the facility, see what the engineering capabilities are based on the schematic that we drew, and then they would start working to put it together. There's a lot of different parts to it. The big part is actually the switcher, but there are other supporting parts, like cameras in the studio, connections, Cali lights, IFB, things of that nature that don't involve a switcher at the very beginning. And they would do the whole package, install, engineering support.
I think there was a question from the board members about could we get up a temporary solution of the camera. And something I know Jim and I talked about this, it's not the best solution. bare bones type of situation, temporary, while we're waiting for all this equipment to get hooked up to that. Someone who absolutely had no other options needed the camera. That maybe we could get something set up, and of course he's still looking into it, but those are possible. But we think it's possible.
Dean, I have a question in terms of the amount of the bill. I mean, I think the engineer's estimate was mid-50s.
It was 52,000.
53, and now we're looking at 80. Admittedly, this is the first time I've ever, closely looked at engineer estimates versus total cost. But can you explain what the difference is between the 53 and the 80? And is that common or uncommon for it to be that big of a discrepancy when the actual cost comes in?
It's really not a discrepancy. We started out very minimal, very bare bones. And when you start working with not so much high-end equipment, but with installation, that's really where the money's going to be. Because once it's installed, it better work. And we can have the best equipment, but if it's installed correctly, then we can't really go and do anything. So the idea of this installation, and that's really where the money's coming from, or for. That's the part that keeps us going from the very beginning. And if there's anything, they're there to actually take care of it. One surprising pleasantry is the person who's going to be doing it for ADI. I've worked with them before at Challenge Radio, Rich Sullivan. And so we go way back in regards to, we understand the language and understand the equipment need as well as the equipment capabilities. So knowing this ahead of time and getting it installed correctly alleviates problems that are going to happen down the road just over wear and tear time.
Two follow-ups then. One, was installation or integration not factored into the original engineer's estimate?
Not to this degree. We had the person that helped me build my studio, and what happened was that we actually, like again I said, we started out very bare bones, but also we wanted more time. And so the time to do it right, we didn't have. Or the time to do it, not so much right, but the time to do it minimally, we needed more time. This situation now, we have a staff of engineers to look at a lot of different portions of this.
Okay. I mean, I thought that the engineer's estimate was pitched as being complete and thorough, so that's where I was confused as to...
It did have installation expenses. It did have integration. And that's what Jim's talking about, is when all these components, when they all get hooked together, and they all talk to each other, when something goes wrong, we're paying for integration to make sure that it works and it keeps working. So if something goes down, we call ADI and they come out. So there is going to be expense for that. That was never part of it. There is $2,500 in training on here because there's two pretty brand new pieces of equipment. I think it was like last week. It was just launched on the tech.
Right, yeah, what we're getting is right out of the brand new, very current, and it's what they're using in colleges.
Okay.
So the training isn't going to be as difficult, and there are some advantages over this system versus other systems.
Last question then. So I have,
one more.
Okay, sure.
One more. There was a couple of discontinued items. Not that it wasn't available, not that it wouldn't work, but when it goes down, you have to go out and buy it new. So the cost of not getting into that situation, especially maybe with the switcher, then we're going to have the support in the back of that. So there is a cost for that, but I don't know the exact numbers.
Well, it sounds like there was some give and take in terms of cutting some computers and everything else, and so the major portion of the difference is the integration piece. And I guess final question, that I assume, even though that wasn't on the engineer's estimate, at some point in time we would have been asked to approve a separate invoice for integration, so that the net effect is likely I guess I'm sort of asking, and then you tell me whether I'm wrong or not, but the net effect is we are essentially where we would have ended up in the long run anyway. Yes or no?
Well, and Charlie, I think you can lend some insight to this, because he really had me get involved with ABI. I'm going to be the first to say I'm not an expert. I can look at the list and know what some of the things are. But by far, I felt more comfortable getting ABI involved. This is something they do every day. The guy I got involved, he has 25 years of experience. So I kind of felt when we did construction, we had the engineers, we had Shemmers who designed it. So I kind of felt we were back at that stage. Yeah, we kind of got to get these two guys involved, because if we, you know, if we're trying to save a few dollars here, my peers in 4 or 5 months, we have no support, and if something goes out, you're absolutely right. There's not going to be, I'm going to be standing up here saying, hey, guys, we need to buy X, Y, Z. We got to get somebody else involved, because, you know, people are lining up and they need to shoot. The last thing we want is if the studio can go down, especially if it's going to get full fairly quickly.
Thanks.
I have a question. What's the life expectancy of the switcher and the other equipment before it has to be replaced?
Well, with the technology being, well, it depends on the usage, and I think we're going to get quite a bit of usage, so our lifespan isn't going to be a traditional expectancy. I would venture to think that 5 years max is what we're going to be good for when you have individuals on a daily basis using the same piece of equipment. There's just a wear and tear that's going to happen that we have to account for. And our wear and tear is going to be maximized.
And from my experience as well, the wear and tear mechanically on the, you know, the technology changes happening so quickly. 5 years, we'll be lucky to get 5 years out of it. But it sounds like the switcher is new state-of-the-art technology.
Exactly.
A good place to be.
Yeah,
and also from my experience, looking at this list and spending $80,000, $80,600, not a lot of money to put together a television studio. In today's dollars, this equipment isn't cheap, but this is going to make one a real nice studio. And I'd write you a check now if I could, buddy. But so that's all I've got to say.
Well, apples to apples, it's not that far from where we were, because about 1/3 of this cost is for system integration and installation, with about $53,000 for the equipment, which is back where we were before.
Yeah, that was my question, is whether or not, you know, apples to apples, if this additional component of that 30,000 was for something that we were likely to have Dean in front of us for, asking for the funds. That's one thing. If it's, you know, it was all in the original engineer's report, and it turns out it's $30,000 more, that would lead me to different questions, I think. So I appreciate your answers.
Does this go on a capital depreciation schedule? Does the equipment get depreciated?
I can check with finance to see, because they have asked for anything we buy to make sure that they get it, and they're keeping track of everything, you know. So, but I don't know the exact accounting rules that some of this will fall under.
I might add one more thing too. AVI is a solid company. They have several offices around, I don't know if it's international or not, but I know that they're a solid company, and I'm sure they'll do a fine job, since they're the only ones that are talking to us.
It's the only option I have for you. So.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Covering both agenda items 6B, 6C, approving purchase of this equipment. We'll want to hear from the public on this, whether we have a motion ahead of time or not. It doesn't make any difference to me. Are there any proponents who would want to talk about the purchase of this equipment? Any opponents? Hearing none, if someone wants to make a motion, we can go forward, I believe.
I move we approve the acquisition from AVI of the equipment.
I'll second it.
It's been moved by Mr. Wireman and seconded by Mr. Kogar that we go ahead and approve the purchase of equipment from AVI in the amount of $80,617. Is there any further discussion? Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you. Let's go now